This week on the 77% Street Debate.
In some sense, influencers are journalists as well.
I don't see myself as a journalist. I'm a content creator who makes people happy.
What is the truth and who is setting the standard of the truth? Is it the government? Is it the people? Is it the truth itself?
Do I think I should be the go-to person to be posting about current affairs? No.
You don't say safe. Anytime they can come for you, but that's the beauty.
Hello and welcome back to the 77% Street Debate. My name is Edith Kimani and this week we are not in Africa, but we sure have Africans with us. We are at the Global Media Forum here in Bonn, Germany. Now, the continent of Africa makes up only about 8% of total social media users, but a majority of the adults on social media rely on that platform or those platforms for news. And because influencers are the ones who rule the day on social media, what does that mean for information and what does that mean for influencers? Should they be held responsible to some standard of truth? Who better to answer this question for me than some influencers from all over the continent? Don't they look lovely? Let's start with Njugush. Actually, his real name is Kimani. Njugush is his stage name. You're very popular in Kenya because of the skits that you make, most of them around politics. Do you feel like you should be held to a standard of truth like a journalist?
I think I should be held to the standards, but then at the same time, what is the truth? And who is setting the standard of the truth? Is it the government? Is it the people? Is it the truth itself? Because at times we are sort of pushed to the wall with the truth because they want their truth to be the truth. So what is the truth?
That's a very difficult question that you've opened us up with. So let me ask Pilile here. Pilile works for Africa Check, which is a fact-checking organization. We're in a post-truth era, right? So what is the truth?
Well, the truth is actually anything that has, it can verify the information, right? So one of the things that we do is we ensure that every time we do a fact check, we give you publicly available information that is statistically correct or that has been, reviewed by experts and so forth.
Okay, let me ask Angela, who produces very different content. Your thing is to shift the narrative of how people see Africa, doing some really interesting stuff. Do you think you should also be held to the same standards where it's like, okay, what's true for you and what's true for other people?
For me, I need to look into what I'm doing and I have to be more mindful of what I have to say because I know that I have a lot of young people that are looking up to me and I need to be an inspiration to them.
Zanele, you also have millions of followers on your page, most of them young. Do you feel a responsibility to them?
Do I think I should be the go-to person to be posting about current affairs? No. I'm aware of my platform and using it to bring awareness to certain things happening in my country. I've done campaigns before, especially when it was during the pandemic, just teaching people about getting vaccinated, how to protect themselves. I think there's a space for influencers to bring awareness, but I don't think they should be the main to-go people for news and current affairs.
Yeah, okay, Calvin, let me come to you. You used to work for Africa Uncensored, another fact-checking thing. You're also a researcher. Zanella here is saying, look, I'm not the person you should come to for news, but people still go to her for information. So where is the balance? Where do we strike the balance?
The balance should be journalists working together with influencers. It's not usually against, but work together with them. The collaborative working with influencers will help tap into their influence and also tap into the experience in fact-checking that journalists have.
Let me speak to Demba here for a second. Demba is a journalist, but you're also working with radio, specifically community radio in Senegal. How do you work with influencers and social media people when you have radio?
Sometimes we are producing some programs in French in Senegal and in English also, but at the same time we are collaborating some community radios and we try to translate every program in local languages in some areas and try to give them the right information.
All right, I want to come back to Pelile here because if people are choosing to follow influencers for news, first of all, why do you think that is? Why is there such a deep mistrust for traditional media outlets and sources within the continent?
Media has become, it's not free in the sense of financial anymore. A lot of the things we're reading are behind paywalls. A lot of people don't necessarily have a TV or a radio, but we do have social media. And so the biggest impact is going to be the person that's giving you a video on TikTok over you having to pay, let's say, $8 to be able to access the New York Times today. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people end up looking online and looking for people that they assume are experts to speak about things that they might not know about.
All right, but Pilile, in the same way that Njugush is online, DW News and the 77% is also on the same platforms. So why are they choosing Njugush and Angela consistently over these other outlets?
We are, I think, a generation that is more into shorter reads and into getting our information as quickly as possible. And I think that might actually play a huge role in that situation as well.
Okay. Njugush, do you feel afraid when you hear that more and more people are coming to you as the primary source of information and sometimes maybe even the only source of information?
It's a good thing, but then at the same time, there's a lot of responsibility. At the same time, people are demanding how they want the news delivered to them. Is it the constitution you're breaking down? They are demanding how they want to consume it in short doses, but they're going to consume it. And also they've realized the truth is not as is. Over time, there have been a very beautiful narrative that the media and the other stakeholders have been able to wrap up because, again, there's no one who has been able to challenge the truth then. And now people are challenging the truth because they're asking the real questions.
It's interesting you said the narratives being pushed by the media, so you separate yourself from the bigger media, despite the fact that you probably are part of the media.
I'm independent, but at times also some of our influencers are paid by the politicians, so they'll be on either team. But the reason why I'm saying the media, it's because it's been there for long. Unlike social media, the traditional media has been there for long. So there've been structures, there've been a culture and a way of doing things that have been happening.
Okay, let me ask Zanele real quick here because we brought up the issue of money and influencers being paid. And yesterday when we were speaking, you said that this is also a concern for you guys in South Africa. Have you ever been approached by a politician or an entity that perhaps you thought, this is good money, but I'm not so sure?
No, I have not been approached, and if I ever was approached, I would definitely say no. I think it just shines light on another concern that we can have of people faking news, having to pay influencers or content creators to come online and say, hey, vote for this person, they're doing amazing. Our youth can sometimes be very naive, and because we are all going to social media for our news, it is a big problem.
Okay, Angela, would you?
Every person that comes to us, we have to first sit and talk. If I see value in it, I go for it. But if someone comes and wants me to promote, for example, politics, I am not into that, and I don't think I'm the best person to promote that, and I don't want to involve myself in politics because I don't understand it very well.
So then do you feel an incredible amount of pressure when perhaps your followers tell you to comment on a topic or a subject that's unraveling on the continent or in your country because you have the following?
Yes, sometimes they want you to talk about certain things. For example, something happened in Uganda and people were dying in Arab countries. And for me, I was like, I can comment, but I don't find myself commenting about it because I don't think my voice is going to make any difference. But for the things like bringing water to people in villages, that is something that speaks to my heart. And I feel like my voice is needed there. And I believe that I can make a difference there. You feel the pressure, but you don't have to feel the pressure at the same time because you know where you can make a difference and you don't need to put yourself where you don't feel like your voice is needed.
All right. So Calvin, Angela here speaking very much about staying in your lane, knowing what you can and cannot do. And it's impressive because she's working by herself with a small team, definitely not with the institutional support that perhaps we have here at DW. So what are the risks to influencers and those who follow them if they happen upon disinformation and it's not verified?
There is no regulation when it comes to influencing. So that will be the problem. There are custodians of information who takes care of these regulations, for instance, in the media field that does not apply to them. So the risk is they can be spreaders of misinformation as well, like we've seen in some of our countries where influencers are paid to promote misinformation or disinformation campaigns. And then it all boils back to what are you influencing for? What do you really stand for as a person? In some sense, influencers are journalists as well, because they are custodians of information as we are.
But Zanele has made it very clear that she's not a journalist.
Well, who is a journalist?
Wow. What is the truth? Who is a journalist? What is a microphone? Okay.
Well, people shift more to influencers than the traditional media. So once you're a custodian of information, then of course you're a journalist in some sense, not by the book standard of journalism, but by the sense that you're a custodian of information, you pass this information to people, and people have trust in you as they do in media in some sense.
Okay, so Angela, I want to get your reaction on that. You know, you're a custodian of information. You're maybe a journalist. Do you think that you should be held to some kind of regulation as to how you disseminate information?
First of all, I'm not a journalist. I'm a content creator. I make people happy. I make people feel safe. I don't think, I'm not.
Hold, Calvin.
She may not realize it yet, but she is a journalist.
All right, Angela, whether or not you're a journalist, content creator, whatever the case may be, you're holding influence on the social media space. Should you be held to some kind of regulation and standard?
I don't see myself as a journalist. I'm a content creator who makes people happy.
So, Demba, we've heard that people are not really looking to journalists to give them their information. They're looking to people like Angela and Zanele, perhaps because of what Pilile spoke about, that emotional connection. So what do journalists need to do on the social media platforms to, I don't know if the word is compete, or to keep up with influencers?
I disagree with this kind of influencers. For me, they are not journalists. To be a journalist, you have to understand the rules of journalism, how to collect information, how to treat it, and how to broadcast it. We as journalists, what should we do? We have to adapt ourselves or we are going to disappear. Young people, they are not following TV channels, they are not reading newspapers, they are not listening to radio to have some information. They are going to have information on social media. So if you want to convince them, if you want to sensitize them, you have to join them on this field.
Let me ask Njugush for an opinion here, because, you know, a lot of journalists, even in our newsroom, the argument here is that I don't want to be doing TikTok dances just to get people to listen to what's happening in Kenya or in Uganda. So where is that balance? Because in the same way you said you're not a journalist, I'm also not a content creator.
You'd be surprised, a lot of young guys and a lot of people have followed one journalist, at least one journalist, to be able to verify, because whatever is posted might be it was posted by someone, but for you to surely say it happened, you must look either at maybe, let's say, for example, Deutsche Welle, your page, or that particular journalist, what they are tweeting. Because now what we are seeing right now is, as journalists are covering the stories on site, they are also on X, they are also updating everyone on social media.
So why is it so important, Pilile, that we make these very strong distinctions between who's a journalist, who's a content creator, who's allowed to do what, who's not allowed to do what?
It's not necessarily a case of who's a journalist and who's not. It's about who is sharing this information, and if the information can have a huge impact, then it needs to be factual and verifiable.
I read something interesting. I used to hear it as a phrase that a lie goes around the world twice before the truth can make its way halfway. And it was verified by MIT. Are we seeing this on the continent of Africa, where you hear the spread of disinformation, particularly through influencers?
So one of the things we were talking about the other day at work was how we can manage the whole thing of being timeless but also accurate, because you have to get on it as soon as possible, otherwise it's already spread so far. You know, a lie does fly faster.
Okay, I just want to get a final comment from Zanele here. You talked about, or rather we've been talking about fact-checking in your team. Talk me through the process. How do you decide what to post? Because sometimes something is just trending and you repost it. How do you determine what's accurate and what's not?
My kind of content creation doesn't involve me spreading news or giving people updates on current affairs, so that's not what I do on my platform. Now, I understand that there are influencers and content creators who use their platform to spread the news, and I don't think it's a negative thing if they are taking that type of information from reliable sources.
Do you follow journalists on social media who do this sort of thing?
Yeah, I would be lying if I said I did follow a lot. No, there's only a few that I follow, but I do also follow other influencers who do a really good job at spreading information. And again, it's a very reliable. They barely ever spread false news, if that makes sense. But even then, when I do watch their content, I'm not very quick to repost anything. I see it. I'm not going to automatically take it as facts, because at the end of the day, I do have a big platform, and I need to be mindful of that, because I don't want to wake up to a bunch of people attacking me for sharing fake news.
So, Demba, a journalist being lazy, because if Zanele here is living her life on social media and does not follow journalists, there must be something we're not doing right.
So, you know, my grandmother used to tell me, when a goat bites a chief, it must be a shame for a dog.
Hold on, let's just, wait. When a goat bites a thief, it's the dog that should be embarrassed?
Yeah. It should be a shame for the dog.
You should be ashamed for the dog. Okay, let's continue.
Because as a journalist, if I'm not able to give the right information and the verified information to the population, and someone else who have never been trained as journalist can do it at my place, it should be a shame for me.
I'm not sure if you've called us the goat or if you've called us the dog, but I get your analogy and I appreciate that. Pilile, there's a question here about when false news is being spread, right? This rise and defect. The idea that if you correct it, you're giving it more oxygen. How do you feel about that?
It depends. So there are certain things that you have to look at. It's not just a case of, it's not a unilateral thing. But definitely, the bigger the reach that the misinformation or the disinformation has, then the importance of actually curbing it is the fact checking.
Yeah. Angela, I know that your content is, like I mentioned, very much about Africa. It's actually very positive. I love it. But when you post something that perhaps your audience doesn't agree with or which they say is not true, how do you go about verifying and correcting?
It never happened to me because I'm very careful what I post. But in case something happens in future, I come up and talk about it and I tell them, and you actually apologize because it's not good to share information that is not true.
Zanele, you're nodding as well. You do this as well?
Oh, no, I haven't had to. But when it comes to misinformation, I think what's so concerning online is that there is no punishment for it. I know some platforms might do a little message. I think with Twitter, if somebody does spread misinformation, there'll be a little message at the bottom saying, oh, this might be not true. But it's like, take the piece of content down then if it's not true, because then the day people are just going to screenshot what they want, crop that part out and still spread misinformation.
Okay, Pilile, I want to come back to you because how quick are these platforms to take down mis and disinformation around the continent of Africa? I know that this is always an issue during elections.
So we partner with some platforms, and one of the things that they do is that we write a fact-checking report, and then we submit everything to them, including the pages and the links that are sharing them. And this platform specifically always puts, just like Zanele said, actually, they put a banner over it. So your post can't be viewed anymore. And instead what you see is this post has been proven untrue by a third-party fact-checking organization. And I think that's something that's really helpful because then, firstly, we preempt it in a way. If one person said it and they have a lot of views, but a few other people have started sharing it, then that social media platform then goes and actually takes all of those things down and puts that link in, and that's all you see instead of the actual post. But the thing is, it needs to be done quicker.
All right. I'd like to invite the members of the audience to give us their contributions. If you have something to say, please raise your hand. Do not be shy. I will bring the microphone to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nozibele Kamgana Mayaba Farms.
Hey, slow down, girl.
So I came out with my story around 2019. I was publicly declaring that I'm living positively with HIV to inspire other people. But at the time in South Africa, it was mostly beauty content creators that had a platform in terms of YouTube. So it was just about taking out my video out there and going back to my shell. But over time, I've gained, a lot of followers, people wanting more information about it. Where I'm getting to is I've gained a lot of followers and people literally coming up to me, asking questions or taking whatever I say with real. We have a responsibility as social content creators, as influencers in this industry, where if we are given the chance to rectify information or share information, then we should do so with the responsibility. So we can't really shy away from things that do not really align, whereas we already have the platform to do so.
Going for social media means we're supporting big tech and we give away the ability to control how our content is promoted, because on Instagram it's a different story than TikTok, but TikTok goes totally wild. What is successful, what not? How do you handle the fact that you need to kind of figure out the algorithm to be successful?
Let me ask one person here very quickly.
I understand that change is hard, but you just have to learn how to adapt and keep trying different things. I know sometimes it just feels a lot better to stick to one formula because it's familiar, but we're living in a changing world right now, and if you don't keep up, you're going to be left behind.
All right, let me get some more questions from the back. Yeah, we'll start here.
Have you noticed any impact on the credibility of accounts that spread misinformation? So like the accounts that have the notes, the community notes, for instance, do they get less followers because of the labels that they have?
Let me go straight to Calvin for this one.
I'd say if it's organic, it's easier to see that change. But if it isn't, then there isn't much change that you'll see. Journalists, I'd say, in most cases, at least the ones I've met, do it for the deliverables or for the pay.
Are you suggesting that we're only doing this job for the money?
I wouldn't say so, but if Njugush wasn't paid for 2 months or 3 months, he'll keep doing his skits. If you weren't paid for 3 months, will you still be holding the mic?
Well, first of all, it would be difficult for me to afford the microphone. Let's just start there. But Demba, it's a critical thing that Calvin is raising here. You know, the idea of authenticity and what's real. But journalists can't have that level of personal exposure, can they?
I just want to remind you something. A patient cannot fulfill their stomach.
I love the quotes today. All right, Pilile.
So I just want to go back to the question that was asked earlier by the audience. It depends on the platform. So it depends on what the platform's rules are and how they adjust it. So if the platform is going to add, let's say, a small note, we don't know whether or not it's going to curb the spread. But if the platform is just taking down the entire post, then clearly it has stopped the spread. And so therefore, yeah, it depends on what the platform's actual policies are around that.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions and then we'll bring this to a close.
There is a space for journalists to be on social media, but most importantly, I think we do need to change the packaging of our news so that it can be palatable and relatable to the young audience, to make even things like political news easily understandable and acceptable to the young people who prefer social media as opposed to the legacy media.
Thank you for your comment. We'll take one more here and the last one.
I have a question, and specifically to some colleagues from Kenya here. So you have a wide reach with your followers, and you can become a scare for governments, like we see in Kenya. So, influencers, social media, they can shut down media houses, but there is no such regulation for influencers. So what is your experience with that? Do you feel threatened if you would post political news?
All right, one final one. You had raised your hand.
My question is about news influencers. If you're collaborating with a newsroom, what do you do? What are the rules of engagement that you have? And then for the journalists who are looking to collaborate with influencers, how do you define the terms to still make sure that this piece of investigative work is still credible?
Great questions. I'll start with Njugush on the question of safety, because while you create satirical content, it's very much politically driven. So how do you stay safe?
You don't stay safe, and anytime they can come for you, but that's the beauty. Because now when they come for you, it's even bigger. Because as long as you're standing for truth, it's now going to be a bigger truth. And it's going to be a spiral of effect. Right now we are dissecting the Constitution. Young people don't have time to read the Constitution. But when now you put it on TikTok, on Instagram, people are able to consume that information and it gives them power. So I'm not afraid because I'm with the people. The only time when you can't be afraid is when maybe you're not on the right side of the debate.
I like that. So, Zanele, there was a question. How do journalists and influencers collaborate? What can we learn from each other without losing credibility?
I think the best way is to start a campaign, reach out to as many creators as possible. But I also feel like if we are going to go down the path of a campaign, it needs to go to the right creators and the right influencers. There are content creators out there, like I've mentioned, who do share the news, who do look at the right and reliable sources, who make their whole entire content about sharing news on social media. Those are the right content creators to go towards, because they also have a great platform to share that.
Okay. So normally at this point of the debate, I'm asking my panelists for solutions to a problem that we've presented. But seeing as we're not so sure there was a problem to begin with, I'd like to get some closing remarks from all of them, starting with Calvin, the journalist influencer.
In the next 10 years, journalism will be done very differently, and the line between journalism and influencing will be blurrier than it is currently.
Pilile, closing thoughts?
We can all be fact checkers. I'm not the only fact checker here. Everyone can do that. Just be more mindful, be more skeptical, and find out before you share it.
Njugush?
Is someone who is creating content around maths a teacher? Is someone who is creating content around food a chef? So I think it's a beautiful space on its own, and we can find a way of coexisting and borrowing from each other.
It doesn't have to be, what's the word, definitive.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Demba, closing thoughts.
Publishing information is not a competition. We should take our time, check first, correct check, and do everything before we publish.
Zanele.
We need to taking influencers who do spread misinformation and hold them accountable for the misinformation that they are spreading on social media.
Last but not least, Angela.
We want to follow you, but we want to find something unique about you. We want to follow someone who is interesting. You can share news, but at the same time, you're interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we asked a simple question at the beginning of this street debate. How do we make sure that there's more truth on social media, particularly on the continent of Africa, where so many influencers are taking the lead? We've heard it from the influencers. Collaborate. There's space for both journalists and influencers, or in this case, content creators. So to Calvin from Kenya, Demba from Senegal, Zanele from South Africa, Angela from Uganda, Njugush from Kenya, Pilile from South Africa, I'm Edith Kimani. Thank you for watching.